As I mentioned previously, today's webinar is sponsored by the New York State and CSEA Partnership for Education and Training, or as many of you refer to us as simply the partnership. Some of you may be wondering, what exactly is the partnership? Well, for those of you who are not familiar with us, the partnership is an organization that administers education and training programs for CSEA represented employees through labor management cooperation. It is funded through negotiated agreements between New York State and CSEA. The partnership offers in-person classroom training, online learning, educational advisement services, grants, tuition benefits, labor management services, and other education and training programs, including the webinar you are attending today. The partnership is a joint labor management organization whose mission is to promote career mobility, improve job skills, support workplace safety and health, and promote effective labor management relations. You can learn more about us on our website or by calling us directly. I'll provide our contact information again at the end of today's webinar. Now that we all know a little bit more about the partnership, let's get started with study skills to build success. I'd like to turn the presentation over to your instructor, Jeff Thomas.
Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. As Nadal mentioned, my name is Jeff Thomas, and I'm one of the advisors here at the partnership. So I provide feedback and advising on our tuition benefits, and if anyone has any questions on it, they're welcome to reach out to me at a later time. But before we dive in, I'd like to have you answer this question. So everyone get ready to type something into the chat. What do you think is the most common age range in undergraduate college students? So what age range do you think is the most typical? Is it A, 18 to 21, B, 22 to 24, or C, 25 and above?
I already see some answers in that chat panel. You can click A, B, or C, or which answer you think is the best in the chat panel and click enter. There's a lot of C's in there. Oh, some A's too. Mix.
Yeah. Yeah, these responses make sense. You know, the C and the A lot of it for sure. She's taking 32 courses, Jacqueline. Excellent. Well, thank you all for replying and participating in that. Some of you might actually be surprised to know that the correct answer is 25 and older, which makes them technically adult learners, if you want to think of it that way. So if you're thinking about returning to school, whether you're taking one class or going back for a full degree, you're going to be in good company.
Before we move on, I'd like you to notice that when I've opened the polling panel, oh, we didn't use the polling panel on that one, but the next one we will. When we open the polling panel, the chat and participant panels will close or might close, so you can reopen them at the top right by finding the participants icon and clicking on that to reopen it. Same with the chat box. Click on the chat icon to reopen the chat box if it's not open. And if the participants panel isn't open, you won't be able to raise your hand, so make sure that's open.
All right, so before we jump into this real quick, oh, good, I was just going to ask if anyone had any questions, but looks like we're all good. So, all right, today we'll introduce you to the idea of a growth mindset and identify time management techniques. We're going to help you identify resources and support systems that you can lean on while you're taking classes and show you study techniques to improve your memory recall. So finally today, we'll also discuss test anxiety and give you tips to help you prepare for tests. So here's a list of the topics we'll be covering today. It will also act as a kind of roadmap for us as we go through our webinar. So let's start with mindset. First, I want to ask you all a question. Has there ever been a skill you've worked on and seen improvement with practice? So maybe it's something you've never thought you'd be able to do, but you can now. For example, cooking was one I always use as an example. Cooking it's incredibly intimidating when you first look at a meal that someone's prepared. They've done all this work, and it's sort of intimidating to think that you could do that too. But once you jump into it and break it down into pieces, you know, I learned that cooking is actually pretty fun.
Please type in the chat box to let us know about a skill that you've worked on and seen improvements with practice. Make sure that everyone is selected in the send to area so that everyone can see your comments. Oh, typing is a great one.
Yeah. Art, almost a perfect example, yeah. Yep.
Organization, Excel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, these are all really good examples of that. Thank you, everyone, for sharing. I'm glad to see that many of you can actually think of a skill that you've improved through practice. That's a really good sign. So by asking you this question, I got a sense of your mindset. So you all seem to be pretty good about building your own skills. But what exactly is your mindset exactly? So your mindset is a belief that influences how you handle or react to certain situations, how you believe you can or can't learn, including how you approach your work, education, and studying. So your mindset influences how you approach problems and how you interpret the results, either positively or negatively. Quite literally, if you believe you can do something, you are more likely to be able to achieve it. Similarly, if you believe you're bad at studying, you'll limit yourself unconsciously and actually end up doing a worse job at it because of that mindset. So let's take a look closer about what we mean by this. So Carol Dweck, professor of psychology at Stanford University, coined the terms fixed and growth mindset. Through multiple studies, Dweck portrayed how having a growth mindset can increase one's motivation, productivity, and learning abilities. So we've included a handout which explains more about this, but I will give you a brief overview of the two types of mindsets and how it connects to study skills and improving learning abilities. So an individual with a fixed mindset believes that intelligence and abilities are innate or fixed, like eye color. They believe they are either good at something or they are not. An individual with a fixed mindset might also think that once they fail, they are no good at something. They often give up easily or avoid challenges. And someone with a fixed mindset may feel threatened by other success. Now, an individual with a growth mindset believes intelligence and abilities can be developed. They also believe that their efforts will help them grow and become more talented. A growth mindset also helps persist through obstacles. Growth mindset also learns from feedback. And finally, growth mindset typically feels inspired by other success.
If you have not printed or viewed the handouts yet, you can always do so after the webinar. They were sent as attachments to the email that you received, accepting you into the course.
Now that you know a little more about fixed and growth mindsets, which one do you think you tend to have? There's no right or wrong answer here, but it's best if you're honest with yourself.
I'd like you to notice that I've opened the polling panel on the right-hand side of the screen. Take your mouse and click on option A for growth or option B for fixed that you feel best matches you. When you are done, please click on submit. Oh, a lot of growth mindsets.
Oh, that's good to hear.
Okay, it looks like now everyone's done answering. Yeah, now it looks like pretty much everybody has made their choice.
All right. Well, thank you all for your participation. So for those of you who think you might have a fixed mindset, I have some good news for you. Our mindsets can change over time, and we do have the power to change them. So the brain has amazing capacities to grow and change. Neuroscience, which is the study of how the brain works, has proven that as you embrace challenges and put effort into learning new things, new connections and new pathways can develop in your brain, and these connections impact your intelligence and abilities. So we don't have time to review all there is to know about growth versus fixed mindsets today, but hopefully you can see why it's so important. It is something that will not only help you do well on your tasks, but can help you become mentally stronger in life. If you're interested in reading more about the growth mindset, We've included the name of Carol Dweck's book in your handouts. So are there any questions on mindsets right now before we move on to time management?
If you do have questions, feel free to type them in the chat box or simply click on that raised hand button.
All right.
I don't see any questions at this time.
Okay. Well, in that case, I guess we can move on for now. You can always add a question to the panel if you do come up with one, no worries. All right. So we've talked about getting yourself in a positive growth mindset as you embrace your learning journey. The next step is to tackle time management. So what is time management and why is it important? Time management is the process of organizing and planning how to allocate your time among varied activities and tasks. For anyone with responsibilities outside of work, which is typically all of us, a healthy balance is important for success. You know how much time you need to spend at work, but how much time do you need to set aside for studying? How many hours a week do you think you actually should set aside for studying?
Let us know how much time you think you should set aside for studying each week. You can use that chat box again.
Take a stab. How many hours do you think you're going to be studying per week if you got a course? 8 hours. Thanks, Kelly. Yes, perfect. 1 to 2 hours per day. 14 hours per week. Depends on the person, but 8 plus. These are great answers. Yep. 2 hours a day, 3. Yep. So we have answers from 1 to 2 to 8, 3 hours per day per course. That is a classic one. Absolutely. So for the purposes of our webinar, what we recommend as a rule of thumb is that you should study for at least twice the amount of time that you are in class. So if your class meets 2 times a week for 1 hour each time, you should prepare to set aside 4 hours of studying. So that's 6 hours total for the week. If you're taking more than one class, be sure to factor in time for each class separately. All right, thank you all for responding to that. Okay, let's take a look at some time management tips. So the first tip is to eliminate distractions. So we all know how easy it is to get distracted these days. Think about what draws your focus away from your studies and assignments. Are you spending too much time checking social media? Are you prone to texting or aimlessly browsing the web? Determine how you are currently using your time, and then remove the distractions or the temptation. Turn your phone off, put it in another room, or set restrictions on certain applications like social media, so you can only use them for a limited amount of time. Then use those activities as a reward for staying focused and accomplishing the tasks you set out to complete. Ashley, yes, exactly. Pets and kids are a big one. You know, you can close the door, but that doesn't always work. Media, yep, sometimes just, turning off whatever you're paying attention, whatever's on in the background can make a huge difference. All right, so once you've eliminated those distractions, your next step should be to list out all your responsibilities. This activity can take a bit of time, so I recommend that you set aside an hour or so to really get into all the tasks you need to accomplish in a day or week. You're basically creating a to-do list in order of importance. Your next step is going to be prioritizing each of your responsibilities. So what tasks can you take out of your schedule, deprioritize, or delegate to other people? Remember, school is going to be a priority for you while you are enrolled. If you don't give yourself the time to do schoolwork and study, you will not gain the full benefit that school provides. You may temporarily have to prioritize your studying over other goals, but know that it isn't forever. Ultimately, it is your schedule, and you're the only one who can decide what to keep and what to postpone. But if you want to succeed, prioritizing school is going to be your best bet. Once you have your priorities in hand, you're ready to schedule your study time. It's best to do this using a calendar, either paper or electronic, whatever you're most likely to use consistently, honestly. Before you can schedule your study sessions, though, let's consider some general tips. We talked earlier about how much time you should set aside for studying. Remember, twice the amount of class time. But how often should you study? So it's recommended that you schedule regular study time. So aim for shorter sessions several times a week rather than one long session. Typically, we do like to try to cram things in, but for brain growth, it honestly is better for repetition to do it more often. So this helps you to process the information and make it easier to remember. Also, be sure to build in breaks and try to be realistic about what you can accomplish in each session. A set routine can also help you accomplish the things you need to do. Is your home quietest in the early morning? You may want to get in the habit of regularly using that time to study or read. The more often you do this, the less you'll have to think about when you'll accomplish the tasks you need to finish that day. So making a pattern is always great. Of the time management methods we discussed today, which would you like to improve on? Eliminating distractions, prioritizing, or scheduling?
Please use the chat box to tell us which time management method you would prefer to improve on.
Yep, scheduling, eliminating distractions, scheduling. The important thing here is that you're sort of determining which one of those three is the biggest roadblock to you so that you can start to dismantle that roadblock. Whether it be, putting a timer on your phone, turning your phone over, finding a good time during the day, scheduling everything out. Yeah, these are just knowing what you need to work on is really the first step in this battle. So perfect, eliminating distractions, prioritizing, this is great. So thank you all for sharing. Something important to remember is that time management isn't something you do once and have it mastered. It is a skill that requires an investment of time and patience. So if you're interested in learning more about these ideas, you may want to take the partnership's Take Control of Your Time or Getting Organized, Time, Tasks, and Life webinars. So at this time, are there any questions about time management before we move on?
If you have a question, feel free to type it in the chat box or click the raise hand button.
All right. So, yep, as I said, if something comes up, feel free to enter it into the chat box. But at this point, I think we will move on. All right. So we just talked about investing in ourselves. Your education is important, and it can open doors for you and your loved ones. So it deserves your time and attention. Although it is your choice and responsibility to pursue your education, everyone can use a little help now and then. We are humans and rely on connections and the support of others in our lives for many things we do. So let's take a moment next to talk about those resources and support systems. I'd like you to stop and think of someone who has supported you in some aspect of your work or life. Who was it, and how did they support you?
Please use the chat box to tell us about someone who has supported you and how. In what ways has someone supported you?
I mean, I think sort of yeah, it is. It's a classic one for me is just like in college, making sure you take advantage of your advisor because it's very easy to get lost in the sauce in college. So touching back with your advisor to make sure that you're on track was a big one for me. Okay, let's see. We got family members. Yeah, family members are honestly a big one. Sometimes even just emotional support it sounds like it may be a small thing, but it is a huge thing. Husband taking on responsibilities with household duties. Yeah, we can't do everything at once. So being able to hand off some of those household tasks is a big one. Honestly, pets, yeah. Pets are great emotional support, and recognizing that is important. Taking 5 minutes to pet your dog it can be the highlight of your day, frankly. So yeah, a lot of family. Yep. These are all really great answers. And it's important for you to sort of recognize that, one, you do have support in your life. And if you don't, it's a good chance to maybe reach out and try to find some support. And if you get a chance, maybe thank these people who supported you in your life. Give them support as well. These are all really great answers. You guys are obviously really aware of your own lives and who's helping you. So thank you very much for participating in that. So support is important in all aspects of our lives, and especially in education. Higher education can provide wonderful benefits, such as greater lifetime income, increased personal fulfillment, more choices for both career tracks and individual development as well. However, as with all life pursuits, there will inevitably be some challenges along the way. We all need assistance, resources, and support systems to achieve our goals. If you think about other goals you've achieved in life, graduating high school, buying your first car, landing your first job. You will likely recall the people and resources that helped you along the way. Support can come from work, your family and friends, your pets, and from your school. So let's think about how you can get support at work. First, let your employer and coworkers know you are back in school. Your training and development can directly benefit your employer. You might also be able to adjust your work schedule, which would require the support of your supervisor. Or maybe a coworker will be willing to cover you so you can leave your work 30 minutes early occasionally. Coworkers could be a source of support as well. If your coworkers are also taking courses, you may be able to study together during lunches or break times. Just having others who encourage you is a great source of support. So your family, as many of you pointed out, is another great way to get support. Letting your family know about your educational goals, make them family goals. So we talked earlier about letting your family know that your course is a priority to you. Help them to understand what to expect when you start taking classes and what adjustments you may all need to make. There might be some things that you'll have to let go of until the course is over. You might need to remind yourself of why you are taking the course and why you're going back to school in the first place. Incorporating everyone into that is important as well, and letting them understand why you're moving forward with your goals. Sometimes you have to reconsider your priorities in the short term. So for the things you can't let go of, don't be afraid to ask your family for help. Be specific in the help you need, though. Maybe you need some help with household chores, such as childcare, or just some free time to study. You may need to delegate some of these responsibilities. Also, reassure your family you will still be there if they need you. Getting your family involved can help you get through the challenging times. One other way to include them is to consider a family homework hour, where you and your kids work on homework at the same time. You will show them just how important your education is by doing this. And finally, don't forget to celebrate your milestones with family. If you aced one of your tests or got a good grade in a paper, thank them for their support and let them share in your celebration. Finally, you can get support from your school. Most schools offer various learning services, such as academic advisors, tutors, library assistants, computer access, and math and writing centers. Remember, you are paying tuition and are entitled to some of these services. To find out more about what services are available, you can go to your school's website and visit the Advisement Center. Some schools even host orientations for you to learn more about their support services. Don't overlook support from instructors, career counselors, wellness staff, and classmates as well. The partnership advisors are also available to support you with academic and career counseling. I actually worked at a community college writing center for a while, and yes, I always like encouraging people to go out for that, to go look for that, because we always did try to help people as much as we could. All right, so remember, once you decide to enroll in college, it is go time. Don't assume your friends, family, and coworkers understand what you need. Ask them for help when you need it. Be proactive. The more support you can create for yourself when taking courses, the more successful you will be. So, are there any questions before we move on to our next topic? We're going through a lot pretty quickly, but yep, feel free to put any questions in the chat panel. All right, everyone's ready to move on to the next part, so away we go. Our next topic is study techniques. So I know this is a section that many of you have probably been waiting for, so here we go. We're going to dive into it. The techniques we are going to study will be helpful for whether you are studying for or taking college courses or studying for a civil service exam. So this can be helpful at any point. Note-taking. So it may come as no surprise that note-taking is the basis of good study habits. Taking notes benefits you both in and out of the classroom. In class, taking notes help you to stay focused and actively process the concepts. After class, when you're studying, your notes will help you to remember better than if you hadn't taken notes at all. There are many ways to take notes, so it's important to find the method that works best for you. We're going to take a closer look at 3 of the most popular note-taking methods next. So, the outline method. The outline note-taking method uses headings and bullet points to organize topics. This method is most useful when learning about topics that include a lot of detail, so science or history oftentimes. This method organizes information into main topics, subtopics, and supporting details, separated by indentations. You can use bullets, numbers, or letters. The outline method makes it easy for you to create study guides and to prepare you for exams. It's simple but effective and allows you to easily see the relationship between topics and subtopics. Another popular method for note-taking is the Cornell method. This method can be used in class, while reading, and studying. It helps to organize the way you take notes so you can go back to them and study more easily. With this method, you'll divide your note-taking paper into 3 sections. During class, you'll take notes as you normally would in the right note-taking column. You can star any points that you think are most important here. After class, write keywords or questions in the left column for each significant point. Each keyword in the Q column should connect to notes you took in the right column. You can later use this Q section to test yourself. This is also a good time to fill out the summary section. This is where you should summarize the main points in your own words. The final note-taking method we'll discuss today is the mind map method. Mind mapping is a visual tool used to structure and organize large amounts of information so it can be absorbed more easily. A mind map is organized by topic. The main topic, or central idea, branches out into subtopics with keywords associated with each idea. When in class, you begin the map with the main topic. Branching off the main topic, write a heading for each of the subtopics. Then, you would write any important notes underneath each subtopic. You would continue sketching out ideas, showing their connections as you learn them. So like the other 2 methods, mind maps are also useful when studying. And you notice that they oftentimes are using the same points, they're just doing it in different ways. So you can find more information about each of these methods in your handouts. So now we're going to let you create your own mind map. So please type keywords associated with the term support system.
Again, use that chat box and you can type in any keyword associated with support systems.
Yep, friends, family, coworkers, exactly. And so in this mind map, you would basically have your support systems, for instance, your family, your friends, they would move around that central topic. And then you would further fill out the ideas as they came along. God, perfect, religion, yep, supervisor, mentor. Yep, these are all really great examples. And so if you want, you can try yourself to fill out one of these mind maps, but that's basically how this works. You just kind of take these ideas that pop in your head and you place them around that central idea. All right, so thank you everyone for helping us out with that. Now that we've discussed note-taking, which is essential to preparing for studying, let's talk about studying techniques. So all of the study techniques we're about to cover are backed by research in fields like psychology and neuroscience. The first tip is to recite it, and this is a big one. Recitation, or talking to yourself out loud, is one of the best study skills because it is easy to do and is effective in improving your memory. You can recite your notes or important passages from your textbook. Besides improving your memory of material, reciting helps you solidify the information in your mind. It actively engages more than one of your senses because you are reading, speaking, and listening. This type of concentration and verbal repetition often forces you to pay better attention. That's why it's much better than just reading silently to yourself. If you want to take this study technique to the next level, try this. Every so often during your study session, look away from the material and try to recite it. It doesn't have to be exact. You can paraphrase. But if you can't, you probably need to go back and reread it out loud again. The next step in this process would be to explain the idea to someone else who doesn't know it. The next study technique is similar and works the same way. Rewrite it. You can copy your notes over several times to memorize your material. You'll get best results if you rewrite by hand and from memory because it's slower and forces you to concentrate more. That is one thing I do like to mention. Although computers are great at taking notes, you can do it incredibly quickly. It is actually a passive form of note-taking, and you are less involved when you do that. So it is often recommended that you take notes by hand because you are more engaged when you do that. All right, moving on to the next one. Our next technique is to review it. To fully review the material, consider creating practice tests, quizzes, or questioning yourself on the material. You should come up with as many questions as possible using your notes as a guide, and then answer the questions based on memory. If your teacher or professor provides you with practice tests, make use of them. And if you're having trouble coming up with questions on your own, consider joining or forming a study group. Each person in the group can make a few questions and then compile them into a practice test for all of you. So as I touched on previously, this next technique, teach someone, is very powerful and a true test of your memory and understanding. Are you familiar with the phrase, if you can teach it, then you know it? In order to explain something to another person clearly, you have to have a firm grasp of it yourself. Try to explain the material in your own words as if you were a teacher. You can do this in a study group, with a study partner, or on your own. Computer scientists oftentimes have a thing called rubber duck coding, where they take a little rubber duck and explain the code they're making to the rubber duck, and it's a form of this. As you are explaining the material, use examples and make connections between concepts, just as a teacher does. As with reciting, the act of talking out loud to teach an idea will highlight misunderstandings and areas where you need more information or clarification. Your student or audience can let you know if there are any gaps in what you are explaining. Our next technique is a classic one, and that is flashcards. Research shows that flashcards are an effective means of creating a strong memory of the material. Flashcards are small, often 3 by 5 in size. You can make your own flashcards or use pre-made sets of cards. Also, there are apps online that you can download to make digital flashcards. On the screen, we have an example of a flashcard. To create your own flashcards, place the fact you want to remember on the front of a blank index card. This will be the word, phrase, or topic, and then place the information that goes with it on the back. Flashcards combine all of the techniques we have mentioned so far, reciting, rewriting, and reviewing, and are helpful for memorizing concepts, facts, and figures. Because they're portable, you can shuffle them around and practice throughout the day. It's always a good idea to shuffle your flashcards to really test your memory. So let's practice creating a flashcard together. On the screen, we have another example of a flashcard with growth mindset on the front, but this time the back is not filled out. What would you put on the other side of this flashcard? It doesn't have to be overly detailed, just a few short bullet points or keywords, enough information to jog your memory about the topic.
Please type what you would put on the other side of this flashcard in the chat box.
Focus, yeah, it's a good one. Learn from mistakes, yeah. Stay positive, yes, absolutely. You got this. I like that one. Yeah, exactly. These are all things that are basically meant to jog your memory and kind of bring you back into that idea and the idea of a growth mindset. So it's just meant to refresh your memory, focused on the process, not end result. Exactly. So you put like 1 or 2 of these on the back of the flashcard, and it sort of jolts your memory, and all the rest of it comes back to you. If you fail, it's not the end of the world. It's a learning experience. Exactly. This is all a process. It's not really the end of anything. So yeah, these are all really great ideas and examples. So I appreciate everyone sharing your ideas with us. So our final study method is another one, like flashcards, that combines the techniques we've discussed so far. It's a proven method to ensure you are reading actively and getting the most out of your reading assignments. The name of the method is SQ3R, and it's an acronym that stands for Survey, Question, Read and Underline, Recite and Write, and Review. So survey means to get an idea of what the chapter or section is about. You can do this by quickly scanning the pages to read. Look for bolded and topics. Question means to come up with questions based on headings or unfamiliar words. Then read the section carefully. underlining or highlighting as needed. Revisit your questions and recite or write the answers to them. Finally, review the section for remaining questions or points that need more clarification. This is just one method that you can use. There are others. You can also modify this method to make it work for you. We've included more information in your handouts about how to use this method. So are there any questions before we move on to our final topic?
If you do have a question, feel free to type it in the chat box or click that raised hand button.
And there will certainly be a chance at the end of the webinar for questions as well. So if you're all holding them back, no worries. All right, moving on. Okay, now that we've had solid study techniques discussed, we have a good place to start on preparing for tests. So now we will discuss best practices to alleviate test anxiety and test preparation tips. So what is test anxiety? Some typical symptoms include uneasiness or distress before or during a test, difficulty concentrating, mental blocks, and fear of low performance on a test. So I'm curious, how many of you have felt this way before a test? So could we please get a raise of hands for anyone who has had test anxiety? I know I'm going to go and click on my hand. Yeah, it looks like plenty of us are definitely familiar with this. So thank you all for sharing and even just admitting that. If you don't want to share, that's all right. Please know that test anxiety is really common for many adult learners, young learners as well. And more importantly, it's something that we can overcome. Preparation is key though, and having a growth mindset will give you the confidence you need to push through that initial anxiety. Believing you can do it will allow you to have a better chance at being successful. In addition, once you start taking the test and realize you can answer a few questions, you'll start to feel more confident. It might even help to look first for a question you're certain you know the answer to. Start by reading the instructions, then skim the test to find one question and answer it before moving on to the others. This confidence boost will help shake the anxious feelings and allow you to focus and think more clearly. There are several other measures you can take to reduce test anxiety. A few weeks before the test, consider doing the following things. First, check with your instructor. Find out as much information about the exam as you can. For example, is it multiple choice or essay? How many questions? What material should you focus on? How many points is it worth? For many, having some of this information can help build confidence and alleviate test anxiety. For some of that test anxiety may come from not knowing those answers and knowing what the test is going to look like. Second, set up a study schedule in advance that you know you can stick to. Plan out what you will study and when. Make sure you have an environment available that supports studying, so a nice quiet environment without distractions. Third, make sure you are engaging with the material and not just passively reading it. Remember that SQ3R method? This is a great way to make sure you are reading and studying actively. Finally, exercise and take care of yourself. The exercise doesn't need to be rigorous. Even walking can truthfully help to reduce stress. And when we say self-care, what we really mean is make sure you're drinking water, taking breaks, eating nutritious food, and getting sleep. Do you have any tips you'd like to add to the list? So what does everyone else do when they're preparing for tests to help themselves? If so, please feel free to share.
If you have any other test prep tips that you'd like to share, please type them in the chat box.
Yeah, arriving early, that's absolutely, don't be late. Listen to music, yeah, put yourself in a good mood, get a good amount of sleep, yeah. These are all, yes, exactly, these are all really good examples. It may feel like common sense sometimes, but truthfully, we all get distracted in life, and making sure that we're reminding ourselves to do these things can be really, really helpful. Yeah, getting good night's sleep, water, great. All right, thank you, everyone. So moving on, we're going to talk about the test the day before and the test day. So the day before you test, Do your best to get a good night's sleep, as many people mentioned. If you're feeling anxious, try some deep breathing exercises to help you fall asleep. Also, make sure to eat a healthy meal before the exam, especially a meal filled with brain-healthy fats and proteins. But don't change up your daily routine too much the day of the exam. So for example, if you're not a coffee drinker, don't suddenly decide to drink a lot of it on the day of the test thinking it'll give you energy. It's likely it could backfire and make you wired and anxious or even give you a headache. So the day of the test, try to arrive a few minutes early to get settled. Yep, just as someone recommended. And do your best to stay positive. If you start to feel anxious, take a few slow, deep breaths and refocus. Challenge any negative thoughts that you may have wander into your mind. If you feel yourself falling into a negative thinking trap, ask yourself, am I basing this on the way I feel instead of the facts? It can help to think about what you might say to a friend who confides in you that they are nervous. You would most likely reassure them, so be kind to yourself as you would be to a friend, and remind yourself that you did everything you could to prepare. You are ready, so do your best. This is all anyone can ask of you. All right, are there any questions about test anxiety and preparation before we move on? All right, well, we're nearing the end, so if you're holding back on those questions, feel free to start throwing them at us. But at this point, we've covered a lot of this information today, and you've heard me speak for a while now. So we're going to review the major points that we went through. So the first thing, remind yourself about the importance of a growth mindset. You can be successful, but you need to believe in yourself to do it. Also, 2, manage your time wisely. Set yourself up for success by setting aside regular time to study. Don't cram. Resist the urge. 3, find support in your friends, family, coworkers, or at school. Your support system might look different than someone else's, but there is support out there. Don't be afraid to ask for help. 4, take notes and use proven study techniques. I recommend you choose one of these techniques to start with. Once you feel you've mastered it, you can move on to the next. And now, preparing for test day. If you struggle with test anxiety, know that it is normal, and it's okay. And it's something that you can overcome through studying, preparation, and a growth mindset. Finally, remember, if you haven't printed the handouts out yet, you can do so after the webinar. There's a lot of great information in there, so we do encourage you to go through it and take a look. So before we close, I would like to ask you one more question. What is one thing that you've learned today that you can apply as you plan to go back to school? Yeah, that study techniques is honestly a big one. The mindset, yep. SQ3R, yeah. Self-care, yep. Note-taking, there are so many. These were just 3 of them, to be honest. Cornell, yep. And truthfully, as you're going through these things, if you find that one of these methods doesn't work for you, don't keep doing it. Look out for and try to find a different method, because the part of what this is really finding something that works for you so that you can do it over and over again. It shouldn't be super hard. So if you find one of these is really hard, try a different one. Yep, finding support is helpful. Cornell method. Yes, these are all really great answers. And we like to encourage you, as you go through your college experience, you're going to run into hardships, and you should just really make sure that you know that you can find resources, even if you feel alone. You can always reach out to the advisors here at the partnership as well. Even if we can't give you the direct answer, we're always here to try to help you find someone who can, so we can also try to help you find someone if you need specific answers or help with something. In addition, your school's advisor is always a really good place if you start to find yourself struggling. The support centers there, I always encourage people to look for tutoring. It's always they are always really good at helping you. It can be discouraging because they don't always give you the specific answer, but they help you learn how to find an answer if they're doing it right. So tutoring, I always give a big thumbs up to. So yeah, I thank everyone for your time. These are all really great answers. So at this point, though, if no one has any specific questions for me, I'm going to turn it back over to Nadal.